Hey, family. So, I just wanted to talk to you guys about childhood. A lot of us talk about childhood trauma, and we know that those wounds can impact who we are as adults. But let's talk about how some of these wounds occurred. I think once you become an adult, you forget what it's like to be a child. Because oftentimes parents are asking their kids, what do you have to be sad about? Why are you complaining? You should be happy. You have everything you want. You get everything you want. And so sometimes there's a disconnect between the parents and the child. It's not to say that the child should be ungrateful, because that's not what we're saying. But I think the disconnect comes from when you're an adult, you forget what it's like to be a child, whether you're a teenager or you're 7. It doesn't really make a difference what the age is. I think adults forget that because when we become adults, action happens. You have bills, you have responsibilities, you have these kids, you have mortgage, you have rent, you have all these things that you have to make happen. So the problems that you had as a child seem childish now because you're an adult. That doesn't discount the fact that when you were a child, those problems felt like problems. And so this is where I think some of the wounds are occurring, especially when parents don't know that they've created wounds for their kids, when they feel like they are giving them a good life and they can't figure out what might be going wrong. This is what I think it might be. The idea that when you're now an adult, those problems that you had as a child just don't, they seem like they're insignificant to you as an adult. But when you were a kid, they were not insignificant to you. Those problems that we had that we wanted to talk to our parents about, or we were emoting to our friends, or writing in our diaries or journals, or crying in our closets, all of those things that they felt big to us as kids. They felt big to us as teenagers when we're sitting there and we're drawing on our notebooks and we're feeling like somebody broke our heart. We're feeling like somebody's not listening to us. We just want a hug. We just want time spent with us. These kids are looking for time. Many of us were looking for time with parents. But if you had parents that were working parents, they didn't have the time. And so there's a disconnect now then because you have the adults that are thinking about everyday responsibilities and making sure that they provide for their kids things that they did have and things that they didn't have so that they could have a good life. And some of that stuff is what people see as being a good life. But a lot of times, many of us, even adults, this is where the wound just transfers into our adult life. We just want to be heard sometimes. We want someone to listen to us. We want someone to just hold us and hug us and take time getting to know us. Sometimes people don't know their kids. Sometimes the kids don't know their parents. There are adults who don't know their parents, who haven't taken the time to get to know their parents. They just know that that's their parent, and they see them as the person that's responsible for them. They're not thinking about them being parents. They're not thinking about them being, they're only thinking about them being parents, not people. They're not seeing their parents as people. And I think that's where we're missing things. We're missing each other. So parents aren't seeing their children as just being people and human beings. They're seeing them as, this is my child, this is my responsibility, these are the things I have to do. So it's like a checklist. But it's removing some of the emotion, some of the connection between the two of you. It's removing that. The other thing is the same thing happens with parents. So as you see your parent, you're not thinking about them as being a person, a human, just having a human experience with all the possible mistakes and flaws and just life lessons. You're not thinking about them having to make those same things, having to do those same things that you had to do at that time. You're just seeing them as your parents, as the person responsible for your existence. So you see where we have this problem. You have the children, and then you have the parents, and both the children and the parents here are not feeling seen or heard or understood, because you have the person in the middle that's saying, I'm too busy for this. I have this going on. I can't deal with this problem up here because you hurt me. You broke my heart. You weren't there for me like I needed you to be, but not recognizing why they were potentially not there when you needed them to be. See, them being the senior, they can know now where their flaws were, where their faults were, but they don't want to keep being known for the mistakes that they've made in life, because if they failed you, they've also failed themselves. You understand me? So then you have these children. The parents don't want to hear these children complain. Why? Because now you become the parent. Now you're like, I don't want to hear that from you, because I know that if you're complaining, that I'm doing that to you, guess what? I'm doing it to me too. So now I have to sit with the trauma that I've not yet resolved because this person hadn't resolved it. Now we have this trickle down effect that's occurring and the cycle's repeating and we don't know how to get out of it because nobody's talking about it with us. So I say all this to say, grant your children the grace that you want to be granted. Grant your children the grace because they're having a human experience just like you are. If everything that they're doing or everything that you're doing for them is really controlling their environment, they already have to be taught, right? They already need a set of rules to get through their day to day because they have to learn responsibility. But also take the time to kind of listen to what they might want to have some control over. Allow them to have some control, even if they're 6 or 5. Allow them to have some control over things that are not going to impact their safety and their day-to-day routine. But give them some control so that they'll know what it's like to have some semblance of control when they're older. Also, help them create boundaries with you so that they understand that creating boundaries is not only necessary, it's healthy. And if they learn this as children, they'll be able to grow up and be adults that are able to do this, and they won't have the same trauma that many of us have had, they currently have, or have worked through. They won't have the same thing. So our goal is to try to minimize the amount of trauma that we're causing for our children. We want to make sure that we're not just repeating cycles. You understand? But this is how we close that gap. Many of us have not had trauma therapy. Many of us don't even know what the trauma looks like, especially the ones of us that are super successful. Oh my goodness, the super successful ones that have a whole lot of money, a whole lot of access, and a whole lot of power, they can't possibly fathom that they could have trauma. It's not all of them, but some of them can't possibly admit that. And then those of us that are the everyday folk are looking at the people with celebrity status and thinking, oh, they shouldn't have anything to complain about. If I had that money, I wouldn't complain either. You don't know that, because having money and having status and having these tangible things does not change the fact that you feel like your heart was broken and that no one was listening to you. No one was loving on you. No one was nurturing you. Just because people are providing things for you that are tangible things, a place to live, food to eat, a bed to sleep in, clothes to wear. Yes, these things are important. These are basic human needs. These things are important, but I'm telling you, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much status you have. You cannot pay to unbreak the heart. You can't class your way out of that. You just can't buy your way out of trauma. I know people think they can, but you can't, because it sits with you at night. It will find you. It will find you. So I'm only offering that we're passing down these belief systems because we haven't untethered these belief systems. Untether your belief system. Just because you're an adult does not mean that you don't matter. And children, just because they're not working jobs and paying bills, doesn't mean that their opinions and thoughts and emotions aren't real for the situation that we put them in as kids. So I only offer, if you attend to the child in your child and the human in your child, you will also attend to the child in you and the human in you. You must see yourself as a human that makes mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. We all are. But please know that just because you made the mistakes doesn't mean you can't come back from it. Life is about lessons. There's no failures. Life is about lessons. I want you guys to really sit down and honor yourself. Understand that our parents took us as far as they could. We're not done yet. We're not at the point where we can only take our kids but so far, because we're still working on ourselves. We also have the ability to go up. When we're in our healing, we can transfer that healing on up. Have patience and grace with your parents, because they did not have the same access that we have. They didn't have the same know-how, especially with our grandparents having been who our grandparents were. Please understand, you got to have grace and patience with our parents. We're going to teach them so much, just like our kids are going to teach us so much. Never forget that although you're a teacher, you're always a student. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to go. I done preached enough. I love you guys. Welcome to the Soul Family. For those who are new to my page, the TikTok shop is having a sale right now, so grab the books. My new e-school is posted and available. There's a healing course in there. There's a new sisterhood course coming, and I'm doing one for the fellas also. All right. I love you guys. Bye.